Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution 9. And comparing his time to Breen's time, we wouldn't expect him to match Breen's time in the Lancer.
No, indeed, it's a very different level of competition, of course, that Jaroslav is at.
And in a Group N car too, so just not as quick. I mean, there is... you may well have the R specification kit on the car, which will just give it a bit more travel, a bit more strength in certain places. But it doesn't make the car quite light enough, they've discovered.
One of the questions I've always wanted to know the answer to with the comparison between WRC and ERC, a lot of the events are kind of swapping from one calendar to the other and everything. What is the actual competitive difference between the two nowadays? Because you've got WRC in its current guise, where we have maybe 1-2 manufacturers tops. And now we've got ERC, which is very much, let's bring two cars of the same model and specification to the event, and we'll have a good shot at the victory. I mean, how does it actually work, or is it all still in flux?
No, I mean, they're two very different championships. In terms of the level, I mean, I think the level is important. A lot of people will tell you that the WRC is ahead of the ERC in terms of pace, and I think most of these drivers, if they're honest, would be heading towards the World Rally Championship. But you know, European Rally Championship has a new status this year. I think it's a little bit more important than it was before, and hopefully it will make a great stepping stone to the WRC. We'll just continue once we've heard from Jaroslav. Chris Raw's there. Possibly going to step in and ask a question for us.
Jaroslav, obviously Group N car, difficult on the brakes.
Yeah, it's very difficult on the brakes. Stage is very difficult and very tornante and push down. I am very happy. Drive, beautiful day.
He's obviously having fun, but mentioning again that the Group N car being hard on the brakes, they're heavy basically, so they're harder on the brakes. But yeah, what we were saying about the pace, I mean, we saw a couple of years ago Solberg came into IRC Rally Monte Carlo. Him and Hannanen disappeared off into the distance and had an absolutely fantastic fight. So at the very peak, there are drivers in both championships who can be exceptionally fast, but the machinery is different too, and I think the guys who are stepping up from an S2000 to a World Rally car, there is a difference in the way that those need to be driven. And if you ask them, I spoke to Neuville last year, and he said just the difference in speed between two corners, you know, so where you would come out of a slow corner in an S2000 car and only be in fourth by the next corner, in a WRC car you'll be in sixth. So there's a difference between the two championships, but both fantastic learning grounds, and we've seen increasingly a lot of people heading from IRC or ERC as it is now up into the WRC.
I'm guessing ERC is quite similar to
your first two-wheel drive car through.
It's very difficult for the tire, but we was a good shoes tire, and now a full hard tire, and it's very good. But it's very difficult for the brake in the finish stage, and we are very happy for the moment.
So that's the first of our two-wheel drive cars, also a Group N car. So quite confusing if those of you who are new to rallying. The Group N cars are normally Mitsubishi, Subarus. In fact, Renault have made the Megane a Group N car. Now, they only really have developed the Megane for tarmac, so it's a two-wheel drive car. We've seen in the past in WRC that two-wheel drive cars can challenge four-wheel drive cars at the very highest level on tarmac if it's dry. Of course, as soon as it gets wet, that isn't going to happen. It's not going to happen here because the Megane isn't pretending to be on the same level as an S2000 car. But currently, I believe, leading two-wheel drive and Group N.
So here we have another strong competitor, Andreas Anja, the Austrian, one of the competitors in the two-wheel drive championship category. My apologies, no, it's in the four-wheel drive category. Andreas Anja, the Austrian, has shown very high turns of speed in the early stages of the championship, and it certainly could be his day. Driving the Subaru Impreza, of course, a car that has practically disappeared from the World Rally Championship, but that doesn't mean that it's not a perfect car to choose for ERC and the lower categories.
Good Group N car. This one's an R4 specification car, so as I say, plus 56 there, 12th place, but R4 slightly higher spec than Group N. But George Donaldson, who's a bit of an expert on these cars, says that they need to lose about 100 kilos to get on the pace of the S2000 cars. But Aignan, he did Illes Canarias as well and was 7th overall, so had a great run there, ahead of some S2000 cars. I think Corsica being very, very twisty indeed, it will be hard to match that result. Certainly the top 10 on the previous stage was completely locked out by S2000 cars, other than Boniface in the Megane. Here we are, Aigner at the finish.
Andreas, in a Group N car, what you don't want is downhill fast stages. How did you cope with that?
Yeah, quite difficult. I tried to push a little bit, but but I just have to look on the brakes at the beginning of the stage. After the 8K's downhill section is really hard for the car. But already there I have a little bit problem with the car with oversteering. We use two different compounds, front and rear. And the rear can't follow, so it was oversteering like hell all the time. It's good fun for me and also for the spectators, but I think for the time it isn't.
It's obviously very, very tough for you as well.
Yeah, for the brakes it's really, really hard, and okay, I try to do my best.
Mixed compounds again, so rear end of the car moving around. Said it was great fun. Here we are, look, this is the complete opposite end of the scale to the roads we were looking at earlier on. Big, wide, nicely tarmacked roads. Much more of a racing line through the corners you can see here.
And it's Robert Consani in the Renault Megane contesting with
this is an S2000 car, so perhaps Consani's disappeared. This
it's Casanova. Yes, it is. You're right. It's Casanova. I was looking at Consani because he was one of the next in the list.
Next in the running order, yeah.
He was certainly on the timing screens as well, so maybe he's just up the road a bit from yes, he is just up the road a bit from Casanova. But yeah, Christophe Casanova in the Fiesta with Michael Zarou beside him. And they're pushing on for S2000 honours, of course. Local boys impressing on one of the oldest rallies in the world, the Tour de Corsica. And if you're wondering how the females in the field are doing, well, there's two of them. Molly Taylor, the Australian, who's in the mix in the two-wheel drive categories, and so too is Ekaterina Stratavia, the Bulgarian, in the Citroën C2. I mention them because, of course, the first ever winner of the Tour de Corsica was a female. Gilbert Thirion, the Belgian, driving a Renault Dauphin back in 1956. So right away there was proof women can handle themselves in a rally car, and there have been some fairly spectacular drivers in the past who have handled the Corsica stages with a lot of flair. We have to remember, of course, Michel Mouton.
One of Molly Taylor's contacts, I believe, as well. Mouton, very supportive of Molly.
We've got this huge resurgence of female rally drivers coming through the fray now, certainly after some early examples in the 90s of the likes of sort of Louise Aitken-Walker paving a trend for rally drivers. We now have some strong drivers coming through, like Louise Cook in the WRC2 category now, so it's slowly starting.
Well, Molly and Seb particularly impressive, and a good programme again this year. They're with United Racing, and they're going to be heading off directly after this event. I don't think they're even sticking around for the awards. They'll be flying out to Australia to do a rally out there. So very best of luck to them. Casanova through with a 1 minute 23.9. Deficit to Breen, who won the stage.
I think that does make Molly Taylor the furthest travelled, or does Oliveira beat her? I'm trying to figure out Brazil.
I think Australia's the winner.
Depends on which direction you fly from, I suppose.
She's certainly the busier if she's heading straight out there with Seb after this.
The commitments of rally drivers nowadays, you don't just race in the European or the World Championships now, you also race on the smaller events to keep yourself in trim. No testing, of course. Certainly not a huge deal of it. So the next rally you do is the next test session.
End of the stage, and the car sliding a lot in the rear in the pictures.
No speak English, mais c'est une spéciale très dure. On est parti avec des pneus tendres à l'arrière, donc elle glissait beaucoup de derrière.
Mais je pense qu'on special stage, soft tyres in the rear.
Donc j'espère qu'on va finir comme ça.
We drove quite well. I have to finish like this. So there we are, learning with soft tyres on the rear of the car. That was the big story, I think, of this stage. Certainly the tyre choices maybe not quite right.
So Breen, 3 seconds clear of Kubeski. Bouffier 7.5 back, and Kubica half a second adrift of that, with Sarrazin only 13 seconds away. It's very close at the end of stage 2. And there's more to come in 7 hours' time, 8 hours' time, my apologies. There's going to be plenty more action still to come, and we're only at the starting stages of the 5th round of the FIA European Rally Championship. Keep an eye on as well, Ancien, Morin and Delacour. Very closely matched, those three. 3 seconds between them. They'll be competing for the outside of the top 6.
Should get our overall classification up next, and we'll be able to see the gap that Breen has managed to get over these last 2 stages. Great start for him. Here he is, plus 19.5 on Kubica, but for me the story is that Kubica doesn't have fully operational brakes. If he can get those fixed, I think you'll see that's going to be the fight. Can he haul Breen in, or is Breen going to be able to continue with that form for the rest of the event? Bouffier and Kopecky extremely close together. Sarrazin just getting on top of the Mini. He could join those guys as well. So 5 there who are very definitely not out of it, but a fantastic start by Breen and Nagel.
Plenty still to come then. Keep an eye out as well for the battle between Delacour and Morat in 6th and 7th. It's going to be very close between them come the end of the rally as well. And this, of course, for the 5th round of the championship. This is when drivers are really starting to break into their stride with their cars. The exception being, of course, Sarrazin, who's getting new to his car.
Stage, what is wrong?
Robert Consani.
The stage is not good because I lost my brake. I don't understand, and I don't have the good pressure on the tire because I check in late to the start. Thank you.
Mark Consani's had a problem there. He came in 4 minutes adrift of Breen.
But he checked in late at the start as well, meaning he didn't have time to sort out those tyre pressures before the start. So 4 minutes, though, is a hell of a lot to lose.
In 8 hours, we will return Herbajalo Pont d'Altagny 2 as we take to this stage once again. And by then, we could have quite a change. On your iPhone, you can check all the ERC live results for each of the stages throughout the course of the day before you rejoin us at 8 o'clock Central European Time, which is, of course, 7 o'clock GMT. Plenty still to come from the ERC, but a great start to the rally for Craig Breen. But it isn't over yet. Kubica, Bouffier, Kopecky and Sarrazin are all very close. It could still go either way. And don't count out the French contingent from Delacour, Morat and Leandri. Plenty of stories still to tell here in Corsica.